Well, us
Yeah,
making
that was a lot of
fun
fun.
of it was even entertaining to me. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was. It was. Well, but I mean, like, I thought it was great how there were like two things that right off the bat were like actually for all three of us, except for all three of us, actually, I felt like the things we rolled were the complete antithesis of what we would have thought would happen to our characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Dakren losing a battle, um, Jasper stealing something, what?
Yeah.
and Hargus fleeing from a battle. Like
He's
those,
way too suicidal for that.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what? No, it's impossible. But then we came up with such amazing stories to describe those things. I thought it was perfect. I thought those were
Yeah.
all
I
awesome.
love creative constraint. I swear by
Mhm,
it because like that's why improv shows are so well,
mhm,
good improv shows are really funny that way because
mhm.
if you're good at rolling with stuff like that, then it's amazing because you create something
Oh
that
yeah.
no one expected.
Yeah,
Uh, like we could have just had the low hanging fruit and been like, oh, Dakren gets married to Roxana and then
right,
makes a guild of mercenaries. That's what I was
right.
kind of that was in the
Yeah,
back of my mind, and I wasn't like embracing it fully because I was like, I'm gonna go with it later, and I'm
too
glad I
easy.
did because it was way more in line with his like impulsive nature, but I wouldn't have thought of it that way. So I love how our characters are developed enough to where we can like roll with stuff like that and it makes
Yep.
sense. Like it's not
Yeah, yeah.
forced. Because it's like, yeah, under those circumstances, that could happen.
Uh-huh.
Jasper could
Well,
commit a crime.
well, and
So,
I mean, really though, the idea that Dakren is so unsatisfied with what he's achieved so far, I feel like fits his character in a way that we didn't anticipate would fit his character. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like what you came up with on the spot was like, yeah, he did this amazing thing, but he's not satisfied with it because probably, not
nobody
to
saw it.
make up
Like,
my own, not to make up his own character, for you, but like, yeah, he wasn't satisfied with the accomplishments because the accomplishments isn't what he's really seeking. You know, those are like the more distractions for the accomplishments, and his real goals are the things that he's almost using war and conflict to distract from. It's like, yeah, and it just ended up fitting so perfectly
yeah, and it
with
was
Dakron.
really interesting to me. I mean, I have like mild depression. Like, I get apathetic sometimes. That's about the
Oh, sorry.
extent of it. But Dakron like has a serious like mental illness basically from like the trauma
Yeah,
of battle and losing a loved one,
Huh?
not being able to
yeah,
fix problems no matter how hard he tries, feeling
yeah,
Sorry.
trapped in a deal he
I like that
feels
part
gypped
plant.
on that really wasn't worth making in the first
I like
place.
that Safari
And
plant.
it's
right.
really interesting to me that this character
Yeah.
can have
Yoga bridges.
this. I mean, I don't want to assume that this is how people actually feel, but because I don't know for sure, but it
Yeah, yeah,
feels real to me. Like he feels like a real complex character to me who has
yeah,
these
yeah.
issues and just cannot shake them.
Well,
Uh,
I'm still waiting to unpack like a lot of his reactions after he got back in his body, because you like started on some things that didn't really get resolved, like
Well,
some somewhat deeply disturbing like rage issues that
since
kind of just like, and it's like, oh well, you're the DM now, so he can't really resolve that, and then for a bit, but like right after he got back into his body, he's chopping the heads off random cows.
well,
you
that
know,
was
like,
actually that was actually the wretch and his evil deed for the day kind of thing.
oh,
And
I
so
that
was
he
gonna
was just
but
say,
but that's
he's
cool.
just
I'm
ticking a
glad I
box.
I kept that like secret from you because
Yeah,
I wanted to see like what your characters perceive that as. Because if I
yeah,
if I would have said Dakren says, "Oh, fine, I'll do it, I guess," and then chops off the head, then it would have just given it all away or something. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it fit with his sort of issues of like you know, he did probably have to make the decision in his head anyway, and just been like, oh, fine, like, and you know, I don't know if he disguised it as rage or, you know, tried to, because he tried to pay for the cow like immediately after,
Right.
because he tries to right the wrongs that the wretch always does, but
negating his
yeah
action.
But yeah, that was
which made perfect
fun.
sense to me at the time. I thought that was a perfect reaction. But what's funny is because I sold him totally just frothing out. Fine. Sorry.
Yeah, this like montage of just mooing sounds, and it just gets closer and closer to Dakren's head. Like shows like all these shots of cows in the fields, and he's just like, ah, just chops them their heads off, kind of thing.
Sounds like Ed Beatty's at it again.
So when we get to the game remake, we'll have the cow level where Dakren murders as many cows as possible without stopping.
And
you
you
need
get
that
and you get experience for each one, but you also have to pay for each one. And
Yep.
Yeah, I've really wanted to like have an arc about Dakren where he can like tell you about the wretch and everything, but I didn't want to do it myself. I felt like that would be forcing it and not letting like, you know, someone else kind of take the reins of the wretch. But it might show. I'm sure it'll show up eventually, where, because my end goal is for Dakren to either kill or absorb the powers of the wretch at some point. So I'm sure at some point that'll come up. But
I was wanting to have a confrontation with the wretch with that sword of yours, because when you get to a certain level and do a certain amount of things, the sword, you know, is ready to enslave or whatever. It's like those undiscovered powers that it has, and that would be one of them, is enslaving the wretch into the sword.
Yep.
You know, that wasn't its original purpose. But
and if the wretch ever finds that out, you know, he's fine with Dakren killing sentient beings to like raise its power. But then he's like, wait, you unlocked what? Oh, no, I see where this is going.
Suddenly the wretch turns peace-loving. No, don't kill him, don't kill him.
But just imagine there's that
ruin his life in other ways.
You hear the wretch's voice in your head. Release me.
Yeah. So still a chance for that. So
I tried to take what you had, very clearly planted, Scott, with the powers of the sword and the sword being such an apparently integral key to the dragon's prison and all that, and I tried to brew it up into this way that you could mechanically, within the 5e frame, do that kind of thing. So if you look through the spells that the sword is going to unlock, all of those spells are geared towards like creating a prison, harnessing the power of an entity, imprisoning the entity, using its power against it. Like if you look at the graduating levels of the sword's abilities, it's all geared towards creating this prison that you described as the dragon being imprisoned in. And then we essentially went in and pulled the key out of the lock when we got there. You're like, oh, there's a key, yoink. let's bust this prison open.
But it was an excellent moment, it's just
it was
you know what it was is when he asked Hargis and Jasper, did y'all even listen to what I was saying? Well, we skimmed it. What? And he just went and did the same thing with the sword. Oh, sword. Oh.
The whole time Dakren was just like, all of you guys have these cool things. I never get anything cool. Oh, there's something cool. Finally.
Yoink.
Oops.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it landed with you guys, from the outsider perspective, but I really enjoyed how the seeds that Scott planted kind of blossomed into Galad Lasser and the Oath Tree. I think that
I really like the
personally that
idea.
was like right into my style of everything. It just merged so seamlessly.
Well, I think I got lucky because everybody just latched onto it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as a matter of fact, I'm going to continue on with my plans and just do what I had planned on doing because it was so successful, and it'll
Yeah.
be its own. It'll
What
be its own thing.
I think the key to that was right when you ended your session, you planted a seed for the next session, and I think that's a
Right.
great system. And
But
I'm
I was
planning on
feeling
doing that
guilty
with
because I didn't
Dustin
mean
since he's
to
next.
derail Jasper's plans.
I
I
had
was
no
afraid I
plan.
derailed your plans.
I had no. I had zero plans. The last two arcs I DM'd, I had zero plans. Every single one was me coming to the group and saying, "What do you guys want to do?" Um, the arc before this last one was a bit more open ended. Like there was not a focused a strategy. The thing you said at the end of your campaign, oh by the way, the evil League of Evil is besieging a prison. That was like a huge matzo ball that everyone was like, well, yeah, the matzo ball.
What?
Yeah, right. But the one before that, I don't know if you guys remember, it was very open ended. We didn't know what we were going to do.
You mean
Well, it
the
makes
Gem
sense
Forest
because
one?
I was trying to
Was it
find
that
an
long ago?
answer
Man,
for
that was
all
a long
those
time ago.
that
troops.
long ago, yeah. We had left the extra plane of ziggurats and flying cat person. What were they? Cat person.
Oh, the
Tabaxi?
Quaddle.
There were
Quaddle.
quaddles. There were quaddles flying around. What were they?
Oh,
What's
They
a
were
cat
basically
person
lion
centaur?
men.
What's a cat
oh,
person
right.
centaur?
I forgot what they're called, but they're basically
What are
lion
they?
men.
Yeah, the
Cat person
lion.
centaurs. Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
it
that one.
starts with an L, but I
Lemire?
can't think
Yeah,
of Lemire's or something.
Yeah.
I'm
So
looking that up.
I'd have to
we'd
go back
left
in my
that
notes.
place. We had left that place. We got that stuff some kind of buttoned up in the extra plane. The soldier guy whose name I can never remember
Torch
had
shoulder.
got his his men. We met his men
Oh,
there.
Septian.
Septian? Yeah, Septian.
I had plans for him.
We got Septian back into the area, and we were there in a wide open plain. And I was just saying, like, all right, what do you guys want to do? And eventually everyone kind of settled on go save, Dakren.
Well, you
but that was
also, I remember he put you on the spot in the middle of a session too, or not the middle, but it was at the end of a session, and you just kind of made up the like something big's coming, and I'm pretty sure you had no idea what it was, but you just made it up for the next session or whatever. I love that. Like I love the idea of just letting things happen as they come.
You did a great
and that
job.
was pretty cool to find out that Shidhalas had a brother, and that he was defending the north part, and she was defending the Ice Blossom as kind of a princess of her mother or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, that kind of established a lot of lore about the dragons. And
I really like where we are with the dragons. I think it's cool that our dragons are so involved in the world. I think
that's
cool.
been one of the defining characteristics of Amara, because Amara for a long time it was just kind of a generic fantasy world, and it took a while for us to figure out like what is different about this. Like I kind of said little things about like, oh, there's like celestial events and lots of like zodiac type things where once a year one of the constellations opens up, and then that Tana's whirlpool opens up, and other gods each have their own places that open, the tavern that never sleeps and stuff. And that never quite stuck, but when we found out, oh, okay, the dwarves have a brass dragon, the elves have a silver dragon, there's a bronze dragon close to the humans, that just made it really, really awesome. Interesting.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense too, because the chromatics and the metallics, they both have their alignment stuff, and they're so long lived. It doesn't make sense that they be completely isolationist. chromatics have always had kobolds, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense that metallics have their, more refined races as their people that they cultivate, their horde of people, whether that be dwarf or elf or man. It's super. I like it a lot, and I think it's so much potential for the the conflict between dragons being this big overarching thing that happens too.
Yeah,
Well,
a lot of
as
potential.
long as Justin's not here, I think we should take a left turn. Somebody should go to the Elf Kingdom, and I just see this encounter. When I write, I end up with these little encounters. I
Sure.
never finish anything, but it's always these one-off encounters, 3 pages, or something. Okay, what happened after that? I don't know.
We have to roll dice to figure it out.
But I could see Justin returning to Elflands, the Elven, sanctum, and what are you doing here, Prince? And just writing him into some story he has no idea about it. I think
Sorry, what?
I even considered some kind of conspiracy that he's always a part of that I would introduce him to by talking about the conspiracy he's a part of. So what do you intend to do now, Prince? Have you forgotten your oath? I think he would really get off on that. Some dark, unshaped legacy that he's kind of pseudo avoiding. All of his plans were set off by put off by his soul change.
Yeah.
Which puts into question why and how he changed. Was it a way to neutralize an enemy?
It would be interesting to go back to the gem forest now that we're a lot higher level, and now that we might be. I mean, that gem still has to be dealt with. That Eye of the Mountain.
Still there? Yeah, still
Don't
there.
know how to
The
destroy
League
it.
already has the Heart of the Mountain, clearly, and they were trying to get the Eye of the Mountain. If Darken was a member of them, it was never clear, but maybe. And
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I had to resist just go like, and also Ivan, you're there too, and your other body, and I'm like, everyone's there. I'm like, no, I can't take everybody's stuff in one.
It was an excellent story. It's still intriguing to me, and it's kind of scary with my character's nature. I can't. It's too magnetic for him. It keeps drawing him in. But he's just waiting for somebody to say, "Let's go back." Okay.
Did you guys ever? I can't remember if you guys ever figured out all of the orb's intentions. Did you guys get a beat on that?
We'll have to rewatch those when they get uploaded.
We had us throw beside ourselves with those zombie dudes. We didn't know if they were going to eat us or what.
Because there was a lot in that arc. I remember it was pretty there was a ton of revelations that were huge. It's like, oh, this used to be an ancient city. Oh, these are the inhabitants zombified by crystals, but the crystals were a mercy by Yord, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this place.
And then we started growing crystals, and it was time to go. Time to go.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to so for me the actual justification for things existing in the world, I want to have realistic justifications. So this gem forest is called Yord's Garden, right? That's all we knew, and it was full of these gem/mechanical perversions of life, right? And it's like, what? Why? What's going on there? And so the only thing I could, the the gems, the mechanical
Maybe.
aspects. Yeah, I know. The gems that slash mechanical aspects were Yord's response to something worse. So
Yeah.
he took this infestation from another plane, and he used his magic to turn it into something benign in the world, and transformed the worm things into these gem and mechanical components that were benign in the world and restricted to the forest, and you couldn't get out. Hey, bud.
Hey.
Hey guys, yeah,
Well-
I don't remember receiving any messages about anything tonight.
Oh no.
Well, Jasper, that just inspires me to revisit some places we've already been because there may be something there. Maybe the whole reason for you going there is because there's something there that might be a solution to this gym problem.
Yeah. We're just kind of talking about things, kind of as a whole, Hayden. Kind of revisiting some things, talking over things we've done, just sort of touching on things that have landed or maybe not landed so well.
Yeah, we might just stick with tomorrow. Maybe I have to leave tomorrow evening at some point. I'm not sure when, and so I put in the chat that we could reschedule to tonight, but I don't think you or Dustin got the memo. So we were just kind of discussing stuff. If you want to wait till tomorrow, we probably still can, and I might just leave at some point. So kind of up to you, but it's been kind of fun to just
Conversations like
sort of
this is what make
talk
the
about.
game, though.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
it's
it's
true.
it's
It
fun
is
to
nice
one
to
of
just
these
have
every
a
once in while.
big picture kind of talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though.
Make sure
I'm-
we're all on the
I'm-
same page and with certain
Yeah.
things.
I mean, I used to go home and make notes. The next day, I just make notes on what we said in the parking lot, you know?
Uh-huh.
Feed off everybody's paranoia and just knowingly nod. Maybe. I don't know. You bastard!
Well, since
I knew
Hayden's
it!
here, maybe I'll give Dustin one more call just in case.
Yeah,
Maybe we
worth a
could
shot.
get
Worth a
something
shot.
on. But anyway, but
Maybe
yeah,
he's
you guys
free.
keep talking. I'll
Well-
be right back.
Yeah, I mean, with four of us here, like the worst comes to worst, we could do us four and then maybe a short session tomorrow
Yeah, that's true.
with Dustin.
That's a good point.
I could really see doing the pompous high elf immortal dudes,
I'll give him
looking
a call
down
and
on
be right back.
their black sheep prince who's not acting like an elf. you know?
Uh-huh.
And, how gauche to be evil. Really, cousin? How about you got over those sort of games?
So petty. Oh, so very emo. So very early high school of you.
But we would have to totally change gears for that because it'd be a lot of backstabbing, kind of conniving,
A political
courtier
campaign.
kind of stuff. Yeah, maybe some assassination and poisoning thrown in.
Yeah. So I don't know
that
what Dustin's got, or I'm sorry, Austin has in store for us for this next arc. It's an interesting thing to give us a 10-year like lead time on stuff. My goodness, that is
Kind of sounds like he's stalling.
no. I mean, no. It gives
He doesn't get full years.
the reason DMs don't give players 10 years to play around with is because if you got 10 years of like lead time, I could have crafted legendary magical weapons at this point.
Can you really?
Look up the crafting time for legendary weapons. It's
Wow.
I could have crafted multiple legendary weapons.
Do you see what I said about when I was talking about Swordbreaker? I was thinking maybe we ought to just make it a great sword because the guy who was wielding it was a weapon master. I still get stuck in old school
the
stuff.
weapon type is zero influence on things
Sure.
like globally. So make it whatever you want it to be and whatever you think is the most fun.
Well, I didn't consider who would be wielding it is the only thing. And the guy who was previously wielding it was a weapons master, so it probably was a great sword.
I
Or
mean,
would make
I
as
think-
much sense as anything else.
I think a long sword works because it's versatile,
Yeah.
and you can either one-hand it or two-hand it. If you greatsword it, it
That's
instantly becomes a strength-only weapon.
Oh, yeah.
But it would make
So-
sense that a strength-only weapon would be used to break other weapons.
I mean, maybe, but why enchant a magical weapon to do something that, if you're
Wanna
super
do.
duper strong, maybe you can just do that on your own. Maybe you don't spend a year creating a magical weapon to do what the super duper strong guy can do on his own.
True.
It's like,
Well,
does a
let's
guy
leave it a
with a
long
does,
sword. Who knows
does a
how
guy
it'll
with
evolve?
does a guy with a 20 strength and a sword breaker, the actual weapon, the sword breaker, really need a magical weapon to do that? It's
Yeah.
like he can just smash things. It's kind of his jam. It's to
That's true.
smash things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
I would
Okay,
like a
you've won
sword.
me over.
I would like a sword breaker great sword. That'd be nice.
yeah.
Destroy people's armor.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's cool too. Sure.
It would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so essentially,
I could
Scott,
Jasper create
whatever
you
you
one.
want it, whatever you want it
I
to
let
be
flying.
for your fun, just have it be that thing. I always
I
come
want
up
it to be
with
a long sword because that's the way I conceived it.
And
Yeah.
But,
I've been looking into this RPG recently called Wicked Ones, where you
Mhm.
play as monsters building a dungeon so you can survive.
nice, yeah. Just protect yourself from these horrible adventures that are always wrecking
Actually, the
your
premise,
home.
the enemies are these horrible adventurers
These
coming to kill you. You're
giant
building a dungeon.
goblins and oozes. They're like, these adventurers that came in last night. They killed my wife and family. It's just me and Squishy,
They
the
come
ooze, the
in,
only
they
ones
kill
left.
us, they take all of our stuff, then they just burn our houses.
They're the worst.
Yeah, he says this as he's stacking skulls of his family.
A man's gotta eat. A man's gotta eat.
All right.
What was I gonna
Well,
say?
do we want to just get through some stuff and maybe finish
Sure.
up tomorrow if we have time?
Yeah.
Not
Good
really sure what we're
conversation.
doing, but sure.
It
Well, if you don't mind, I'll leave it a long sword because I like the concept.
Again,
The reason why is it's story driven. My inspiration is story driven. There's a reason I made it a long sword.
whatever you want it to be, Scott, I think that's what it is.
What are y'all gonna do with that green armor and weapon?
Aaron, the DM, really wants you. That was something that he was going to be like sort of poking at you guys to determine during our 10-year downtime. And I love that Scott is enthralled by it.
I think
Well,
it makes sense
it
that
goes
Argus
in
would
hand.
take it.
Argus
There's
would
a-
take it and keep it.
There's a
I mean,
subtlety. There's a subtlety of magic description.
Safekeeping.
A subtlety of magical description that has been written in the magic item description there, where I listed it in
Really?
treasure.
Oh,
That if you, I think Austin would probably be the most readily recognizable person to read through it and have an idea right off the bat. But again, we're talking about 10 years here, so we've got plenty of time for the group to figure out everything actually involved with this magical item. So it's not a secret, quote unquote, but it was going to be kind of a fun reveal when somebody chose to sort of pay attention to it.
She's over there.
And
stressing
whether
out, isn't she?
whether that was going to be Dakren that got interested in it, or whether that was going to be Hargus or Shaz, really anybody, really, whoever paid the most attention to it,
Well,
would have gotten some insight over time.
I don't know. I don't know if this is what it's going to turn out to be, but when I was thinking of the old, what are they called? druids. They have what druid wardens, which are like sheriffs. Those are basically the bodyguards, the physical force of the druids. Like every druid might have a couple of sheriffs with him, and their badges and your green armor, inspiring me to think, could this be a warden's armor?
I was thinking exactly that.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was thinking exactly that, the warden's armor. And Austin, having read a book that I know he read, is probably recognizing something in the magical description right off the bat here. But it is fitting. I feel it is fitting for Hargis to be somewhat enthralled by it as well. So
Where's the description? I mean, I
enthralled,
see the
and
lists of them, but
it's in treasure.
well, you know what he would do if anybody, he would claim it if nobody seems interested and preserve all of it, but he would only take all of it. He wouldn't let it be split up.
Yep. And I think that is and when you guys spend the time to really dig into it, you quickly recognize that was the correct impulse as well, to not split it up.
That would be a fine gift for a young dragon.
it's humanoid armor, though, right?
It is humanoid armor, and on the one hand, you guys, that have you found it, Austin? Up a little bit in treasure.
I mean, I see the list, but you mentioned a description, or is it just single?
It's
words?
more like a little scritchy scratch, tickle of a description. Did you? So, what I have listed here?
Under magic items.
Oh no, treasure.
Treasure.
What I have listed is emerald scale mail, emerald veined longbow, emerald crystal longsword, and under
Emerald
each of those
arrows.
Emerald tipped arrows. Yeah. In parentheses next to emerald scale mail, for instance, I have emerald scale mail in parentheses dormant.
Okay, so apparently
That really
they haven't been there for
very
long.
Close to stuff I've been thinking of.
Is that what we I should surmise? Because they haven't had time to spend in the.
So
trove.
in my twisting of the kernels planted by what you've read, Austin, the dormancy is related more to that it has not had a bonded wearer.
Oh,
well, can
so
I
you're
add
doing
something to those magic items?
So you're
Emerald
making them
magic
more
items?
like a vestige of divergence as opposed to like
It's like a
absorb the power
grouping.
of the horde.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can I add something to those magic items?
Yeah, sure.
A horn of ivory with green veins going through it, of the same making as the other.
Like
That
a
checks out,
drinking
yeah.
horn?
No, it's a war horn.
War horn? Yeah.
Sounding horn.
I'm excited to add a war horn to it.
And we can just reveal these things as we go along, because I've already got a great idea.
Yeah, I think that fits.
I'll write it down and send it to you if you remind me.
I'll add it right now.
We gotta find a good place to keep this. I could see a dragon's egg hatching, and then a summons being sounded to appropriate people that only appropriate people could hear, drawing them to a special place at a certain time. See, I'm bubbling with ideas right now. That sounds great. That's cool.
This is, I suppose, the setting. So I was kind of waiting for it to be discussed maybe in the 10-year arc thing, but we're kind of in it now. So the dragon, the Emerald
This could be one of
Forest
those
dragon
things
egg.
that we revisit later, so you can kind of
Yeah.
summarize it, but the
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the big reveals will feel good later when we live them.
Yeah, the Emerald Forest dragon egg is going to hatch within the 10-year time frame.
And don't
Wow. What do
dragon
we do with the
wormlings
egg?
grow up to young dragons within 10 years? Let me check.
Yeah, their exact age and things like that is certainly something to think about.
I am of fear that you would not want to reveal this dragon to other dragons, not knowing how they would react.
Yeah, I mean
It seems like everything
that's
on
a
this island
question
should
for.
be fairly secret.
My first thought when you said there was a dragon's egg is that's it. I'm going to have to spend my 10 years here watching over this egg till it hatches.
6 years. So when
Yeah.
a dragon is on its 6th birthday, it is a large young dragon at
Really?
that point. Yep.
That quickly.
Yep.
Wow.
And then when it's 100 years old, it's an adult, and 800 years, it's ancient.
I haven't read the Dragonomicon.
So, very interesting. So yeah, if it hatches even within that year or two, it has plenty of time to become a young emerald dragon at that point. So
that's the thing we're going to have to discuss with all of us there is what are we doing with this dragon? Because I think we're all of the mind what's right.
I'm pretty sure didn't we kind of establish that the Order of Druids was going to be restarted, or a new Order of Druids was going to be restarted with kind of maybe
That's definitely one of
Duffy as
Jasper's
sort of the spear point of that.
Yep. One of Jasper's main focuses during this 10-year period will be establishing all that. Yep.
Very cool. And then
Yep.
so as that dragon grows, the power of the emerald weapons and stuff grow.
That's the idea. Yep.
I like it.
Yep. I always like the idea of weapons and armor growing with the character as opposed to starting out as super powerful. I like the idea of it growing with the character. And this happened to be a perfect time where there was a perfectly reasonable justification for the armor to have been essentially unused and dormant for a very long time. And this new hatching dragon be the one to empower it moving forward once it found a suitable carrier and wielder of those items.
Okay.
See,
I was
maybe I
wondering
ought to
if
hold
maybe
on
they
to
were very, awakened or whatever, but then the emerald dragon died and they went dormant. But now there's a new one that's sort of coming, so.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep. You talked about what everybody's gonna look like in 10 years, Austin. And I was like, well, some of us will be unchanged, essentially. 10 years for Jasper's.
That's true. Same with Ivan. Same with Flint.
Yeah, Flint. Yeah.
But I wondered if maybe Shaz would have some kind of a new look.
Yeah, Hargis, Shaz, and Dakren. 10 years that's a lot.
I mean, it's like 5 years for, a half elf, but that's more than it is for gnome. So. Yep. Okay. So do we want to move
I don't know
forward
about
with our?
this. I'm thinking maybe the gods won't let him get old.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just to add to the mystery.
And it just looks.
Hargis shows.
You look like
exactly
you haven't aged a day.
What are you talking about? Look at my beard; it's longer.
You haven't aged a day. Then Hargis is like, I feel thin. worn out like butter spread over too much bread.
Classic.
Good voices too. I don't know. I'm really liking the character, but if he ages, he's gonna just get too old. So I don't know.
Well,
It's gotta come to an end sometime.
I don't know. I mean, we might not do another 10-year break, This might be the last stretch of these characters' adventure, and then maybe Hargis does die of old age or whatever, a seasoned,
Well, the
bard
way
with
I've been
many
playing
I
the
don't think he's gonna
character,
die of age.
the
Anything's
way he's
gonna
just
kill
gonna
him. It's
fade
not gonna
out.
be age.
He's gonna disappear. You'll find his bones somewhere in the far future.
sword stuck in.
He's written a note though. Beware the Somebody writes
He
that out.
write multiple
He must have been
names?
This guy
killed.
did.
Killed while writing. You write.
Write it. I expected like a scribble or something as he died. You don't write out your screams.
Well, the way I was writing him and the reason I strength to him, when I got the next chance was he really didn't become a bard. He was a bard, right? A mundane bard. And he really didn't discover his true talent and calling until he walked away. Remember, I described him as walking away from court life and all that nonsense and being forgotten. And then all of a sudden, he discovers his true passion and he rediscovers life and passion and all that. And that's the reason for his attitudes. It was when he walked away and walked into this adventuring where he didn't care about dying, doesn't care about money. He cares about his craft and the things that give him pleasure. And that's what he does. Just like his attitude towards evil. He confronts it when he finds it. He confronts wrong when he finds it. And to hell with the rest.
You know what I think would be interesting for Shaz is that he changes his fighting style. Because so far he's always been the heavy weapon 2-hitter, right? I thought maybe he could change his style to be like more of a fine swordsman or something.
Oh,
than, like,
so
an
you're gonna
axeman.
change
Do
your
that.
martial
Fighting
style?
martial fighting style, maybe like change
That makes sense for a warrior.
Yeah, after 10 years, you might be like, I want to try something new,
maybe Shaz is just like, oh.
Well,
Like,
I've
God, he'd be
you
like,
can't help
he'd be
but
like in
discover
his,
stuff.
Shaz be like in his early 40s now,
Really?
something like that.
Yeah,
Or maybe
yeah.
like late 30s.
After 10 years.
Might be time to drop that heavy sword and get something better balanced and
You know,
lighter and faster.
Leonidas was in his 60s.
Yeah, but those dudes were cut out of different cloth.
Yeah, if you're not a weenie.
It really
Just
explains
copper
why
armor, 100-degree heat.
It really explains why
Bronze.
the Middle Ages were so violent, because everybody was in their 20s and 30s. Like, they didn't have any elderly people to go to for wisdom. They just,
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if the president of the United States and all the entire Senate was 25.
20-something.
Well,
I
for
mean,
years,
For real,
years,
though. Yeah, for real.
it says for a few noblemen, only intact armor that they had when I was growing up, they would talk about everybody was 5 foot tall.
Right.
That's because those are the guys that came back from war. All the 6 foot, 7 foot tall beasts were left on the battlefield dead in their giant armor. So all the tall armor is found on the battlefield because those were the guys carrying the battle.
Your dinky little
Yeah.
generals. Napoleon made it back.
Right. Oh, Napoleon, that SOB. Oh. If you read the campaign on Russia, you realize dinky dog he was.
Yeah.
he abandoned all those troops he carried into that war.
Yeah.
Carried them all the way to Russia and then abandoned them to make it back on their own. And when they got back, they were ostracized.
Not
They were
doing so.
vilified
Yeah.
while he was a hero.
Did you see what I sent you, Austin?
Oh, I will see that now.
I sent Austin a secret message. So.
But yeah, I kind of in my mind thought it kind of he's been rejuvenated through his discoveries, but I don't
Very
know.
cool.
I'll just play it however. If he ages, he ages.
Find out.
He's still gonna have the same attitude. Creep more. And maybe that's what he's thinking. Maybe that's why he's.
Well,
When I originally created him, I even have this aspect where he was actually a warrior, become a bard until he left service.
mm-hmm.
That was a thought too. So I thought about making him a dual class at some point. Like right now would be a good time,
Oh,
but I don't know how that works.
it's pretty easy if you're using D&D Beyond. You can just add levels in a different class. So that's how Dakren's always been. Dakren's always had 2 levels of fighter and then the rest warlock, and it's been really interesting build. Basically, I've focused on any spells that don't require saving throws because he's a fighter first and his charisma is just very medium.
Not terrific, yeah.
And that's been really fun because I've had to be like, oh, that'd be such a cool spell, but it's a saving throw, so I'll look for something else. And there's been a really cool, like, sort of naturally occurring focus on his eyes, like seeing in the dark, you know, seeing people in their dreams, detecting magic.
The shield.
And so, yeah, the shield even, and that, I didn't even intend to do that. And now scrying is what he just got. And, yeah, I think, well, let's see, I got another Eldritch Invocation. I can't remember if that has to do with it too, but... Oh, no, that's when I'm, like, level 17.
Oh, it's interesting. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, you can make some really interesting ones with multi-classes if that's what you wanted to do. We leveled up twice since Aaron's campaign ended, so if you could have 2 levels in a new class at this point.
That's true. Very true. Very true.
All right.
So I would do dual class and call it my old class.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you want to try and do some of the kingdom stuff?
Yeah, do we want to do kingdom or do we want to do the backstories of the 5 years and stuff?
Still gotta find those dang goblins.
That's a one shot for another night. I'm not even joking. If I'm the player, awesome. If I'm the DM, awesome. I want that one shot. I want to see those goblins running across from the devastation of the Evil League of Evil army. Just like trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
As their comrades come, their corpses and parts of their corpses come landing around them. It's like they're fleeing a bombardment, and
that could be corpses. Campaign 2. I mean, in all honesty, that could be a whole campaign to find out what happens to them, like, one shot aside. It would be fascinating to just find out, like, they might go off to, I mean, how could your life ever be the same after surviving something like that?
I mean, it'd be rough.
Definitely makes an impression. It leaves a mark. Especially if Hargus invokes his shadow and says, "Go find the goblins."
Well,
that
he
would
was
be
in a
fun
tree
one.
at the time, but oh yeah, afterwards, yeah. So yeah, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna try Kingdom for our last couple hours? Do you wanna just do our summaries of the last 5 years of the decade and then just have Dustin do his tomorrow?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That I think. Work.
All right.
I
In that
think Hargis would like to
case-
build, as long as we're doing stuff. He's doing quite well in his businesses. I think I can roll for that. However y'all want to, and most of it's going back to producing these bards and eyes and ears, and then some of them are branching out into other stuff, like whatever. Like, well, he needs to be on a bow. He needs to be on a sword, not pulling strings on a lute, which is a crime, or whatever. But I think he's going to spend money and build his own tower attached to the keep we have.
Yeah, I
He needs
started
a place for
to
his books.
A
write
tower
up
or a
some
concert hall?
yeah,
Tower.
like
The
a
world's my concert
personal.
hall.
I,
Stand
I
on
was
top and get a bigger, wider range of audience.
Terrible acoustics, though.
I was
Terrible
starting
acoustics.
to write some notes on like how we could balance the having like expansions to the keep and stuff, but I think it'd be better if we just sort of didn't worry about the mechanics.
Gloss over.
Yeah,
It's
like
10
just
years,
sort of
and we're like
yeah. I
friggin'
mean, obviously
superheroes.
we don't need to worry about time, and then we just kind of need to
Yeah.
come up with a reasonable amount of money, but we could just sort of talk about kind of how it benefits you when you go to the
Yeah.
concert, or it could just be a fully like role-playing thing, where it's just like, oh, you just
Yep.
have a theater that people come to, and it's at our keep.
Yeah,
or
I'm really
sponsored
happy
by
with
our
the
keep.
beer gardens. The tower is like where I keep stuff and hide, and like every extrovert has a little introvert in them, so you need that time alone to prepare
Recuperate.
for to prepare to be an extrovert again. Yeah,
That is
instead of
very, very true. Very true, Scott.
To manage that energy.
very true of me. The older I get, the more it's true.
Yeah.
So the tower is just a tower. I have the beer gardens in every place we go nearly of any size to exercise my skills.
Yep.
And my energy.
Yep.
And I could do that for 10 years and be happy.
Oh man, the setup of the beer gardens, I gotta say, cracked me up. I had a good time. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch that because that was I can't remember everything that happened in that downtime, but that was fun.
It was a busy downtime.
That was funny.
Basically, in our 3 major cities, I've leased land or part of a park or something on the edge of a park, and created identical giant wagon.
You set up a franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So anywhere you go, you either get good sausage or good pies and beer. So.
Do you have a name for your franchise?
Nope. I forgot what we call it. We'll call it the Garden. Bard's Garden.
Let's see if we had a name.
Remember.
Ooh,
I have to go
Bard's
back
Garden.
and see if
that sounds really. That's catchy. I love that.
Bard's Garden.
I think that's what I'll call it if we haven't already named it.
Bard's Garden is pretty good.
Bard's Garden.
Well, you're the owner. You can change the name if you.
Every one of them's a Bard's Garden.
Bard's Garden on the lake. Bard's Garden on the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That works. All right. So Bard's Garden is it.
I just
or
googled
meatballs.
that, and nobody's ever named anything that. I can't believe that.
The only place we don't have one is in the Elflands.
They say we've got enough bards of our own. Thank you very much.
They're a bit rude.
We're
They say that, but you never
And
hear them.
it's been we've got our own bards. Thank you very much. And they have hundreds more years of experience than you will ever have, human.
That was one of those. That was a magic moment when we were talking about the elves, and we were dissing the elves in the last episode. I forget. I don't even remember what we said, but it was like, yeah, and they're boring, and everybody's looking for it or something like that. It was like so spontaneous. It was like the perfect.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's just really hard to get a lick.
Really hard to what?
It's just really hard to get.
Keep
in elf
cutting out right at the
communities.
end of that sentence. Try again.
I think it's when you move.
I was saying it's really hard to get a liquor license in
There you go.
elvish communities.
I know, because they claim they can drink everybody under the table, but all the liquor is mysteriously missing. So I wonder. It could be some of our questions about half elves.
All they serve is like 3% stuff.
Yeah, a couple of drinks and an elf, and out comes the scrambled eggs.
I thought it was funny how that was
side up right here.
an ignored aspect of The Hobbit in the movies and things was the elves getting just blasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really
Legolas
changed the
claiming he doesn't feel a thing. Yeah. Well, they
They're
definitely
like
have a stick up
singing
their
all the
butt,
time,
so-
and
Yeah.
they're much more like
Yep.
Fae in the original book.
Yeah, compared to the books. Yeah. Well, reading the Silmarillion, I could read enough into it, and you just have to separate your universes, or you'd never enjoy a book movie as much as after reading the book. So if you couldn't do
I know. Story of my life.
Yep.
So much so that I came up with the very vocal theory that I tell all my friends, family, anyone who will listen. I'm like, if you watch the movie and then read the book, you can enjoy both. But if you read the book and then watch the movie, chances are you're going to hate the movie.
I just have to neutralize my expectations.
Yeah.
It's like Game of Thrones, I guess say that is the closest, enjoyment wise, this is as close as I've ever gotten to the book.
Yeah.
But they jumped the shark too. But I don't see how they could have been. I'm probably better that they didn't get close to the books, because it would have been so dark nobody could have watched it. But it was pretty darn close.
I stopped reading the books partway through, and I was just like, you know what, George, you like raping people too much, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read your garbage anymore.
The last book was so harsh.
Just love it.
I think he was desperately trying to stay ahead of the series on the last book.
Yeah.
I struggled. I skipped whole chapters just trying to get through it.
Thanks.
I mean, well, paragraphs, but oh my gosh. And then he was, it was obvious he was trying too hard, because he was forcing the characters, sacrificing logic and reason to get the characters where he wanted them to go.
Yeah.
And it just, it was painful.
Fell apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of rape. But you know what?
I mean,
there was a lot of rape. There was a lot of rape. If you consider history, there was a lot of rape.
I mean, I suppose, I guess
Love
maybe.
making's pretty modern.
Yeah, maybe. It to me, it sounds, when he poses the argument that way, when George is like, well, historically, I'm like, I mean, for one, really though, okay, maybe. But then secondly, it sounds a lot like it's what my character would do, quote unquote. And I'm like, but George, you're making this fantastic reality. This isn't history. I hate to break it, George, but this is not reality. This is your fantasy world, and you've chosen to incorporate this very particular aspect into
And
your
it
fantasy
seems
world.
like you
Well,
picked
when
the
you
wrong
look at the
definition of
100-Year War,
fantasy.
that was a lot of rape, a lot of murder, and a lot of rape.
Yeah.
But consider Attila the Hun and how he changed. Not only did he change the carbon footprint of the world, he actually changed the DNA of half the planet,
Right. Yeah.
or imparted his DNA to half the planet.
Yeah. Right. What were you saying, Austin?
I was just saying, seems like you might have the wrong definition of the word fantasy mixed up in your fantasy world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, too much reality in your fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am definitely an escapist when it comes to fantasy.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Tolkien's thing about that. Have you ever read that or seen that quote
I
from
think
Tolkien?
I've heard it, but I don't recall.
I'll paraphrase, but something to the effect of course, fantasy is escapist, and rightly so. Don't we consider it every prisoner of war's duty to escape from his captors? Well, rightly
That's
so. Rightly
excellent.
so.
Yeah,
Our fantasy is, our escape from reality.
absolutely.
I'm like, JR, my man. I'm like,
This guy gets it.
This guy knows what's up. And
Yeah.
and the sequence of like images they have for his face during that, I don't know if it was a recorded interview, whatever, but he looks very impish and smirking. He's just like, and I'm like, that's my dude right there.
Well, I don't think it's unlikely that books like that will ever be written again. That was something he conceived as a whole
Yeah.
and had been pondering for years and playing with in his mind, and then put it down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I just,
Yep.
it's amazing.
I mean, Wheel of Time made a good step in that direction.
I loved it.
Unfortunately, the author died young, relatively.
Yeah, but he
But
had a lot of rambling.
He made strides.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it, and it was so character driven, and it's probably the same reason I loved The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings was it was so character driven. I needed, even if what I found them doing was painful to get through, I had to know what was happening to the characters.
Yeah.
And even if it was just a paragraph out of 4 chapters, it made it worthwhile. It kept me going.
I mean, currently, I think we've got Sanderson really, taking up the mantle of that. He is
Who?
Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah. If there's one author I would recommend you try out, it's Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, he is a dynamo.
Yeah,
force
he's
of
just
nature.
revolutionizing fantasy like it hasn't been done, I think, since probably Tolkien. Like he's just completely discarding
that would be refreshing.
He's just discarding the, Council of Wizards, Dark Lord taking over the world, necromancers, all of that. Like it's something completely new and refreshing.
Yep.
And he single-handedly restored my hope in fantasy, because I was so sick of reading the same, elves, dwarves. I mean, I like that in D&D, but I don't want to read about the same worlds over and over again.
It does get redundant. Have y'all read any Jim Butcher?
Yeah, I do like Jim Butcher. He's got
I love
some
the Dresden
interesting
Files,
stuff.
But he's got a really good fantasy series.
Is it the Furies one?
Furies of Cauldron.
Yeah.
Cauldron.
He took he was at an author's conference or something, and he said a good writer can turn a bad idea into good literature, but a bad writer can't do anything even with a good idea. And so I think he said, like, somebody give me a really bad idea, and somebody said, okay, mix Pokemon with the Lost Roman Legion. And he's like, all right, I will do that. And so he wrote...
he grabs the mic and pulls it, and it says, I said, give me a bad idea, you moron. That's amazing. I said, give me a bad idea.
And he made a book about it, and then just a series about
There's
it.
a
And
whole
he ended
series.
up basically they're not Pokemon, they're Furies, but they're different elements. People have them and they use them to fight other people, sort of thing. And
It's the
the
form
whole
of magic
origin
in that
story
world.
is that the Roman legion got lost into this other world and then populated it. And so they have Roman names. And I think there's one Easter
Awesome.
egg that I found, and there's a mountain named Gyarados. And I'm
There
pretty
is.
sure that
Oh my gosh.
that's the one like throwback that it's a Pokemon book or whatever. But I read the first one, and it was, I mean, he does a
Oh my
great
God.
job of making
That's
it
rough.
feel totally fresh and everything. And yeah, Jim Butcher's
It's
got.
fresh.
I'm not a super big fan of how he writes. Like his descriptions sometimes were a little distracting, but maybe I just wasn't used to like. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't used to it, but really
Well,
good, really good ideas.
The
though.
audiobook,
I mean, he
I would listen
definitely
to it on
owned
Audible.
that idea.
Oh, good. Yeah, I read them and I've listened to them on Audible, and they did the wrong voice can ruin a series. Like the Game of Thrones, the guy who they had Game of Thrones, I couldn't listen to it. It just ruined it for me.
Oh,
The
yeah.
last book, but they did a really good job of the series. They used two voices, and it was outstanding. But the books were a fun read to me. I just devoured them, and it was so different. And his interactions, and that's why I like Jim Butcher. His characters are so alive to me, in my head. Like, the bear. I don't know how to describe him without giving away the series. The bear race that lives on the other side of the ocean, and at one point he's got this bear's basically got his throat in his mouth, and he's got a knife in the bear's eye. He says, "As much as I know about your race is just bad breath," and it just like, the whole series is just, I got brass balls. But yeah, I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I should try getting back into those because I read the first one and I never got around to reading the second one. But
it's
those
excellent.
Furies books are really good. I like the first.
The last one left me a little hungry for more.
Yeah.
But, I think that's the end of it, and it was a good ending. It was good. It has romance. I like the romance and the interplay between all the characters. It was just, I enjoyed it, and I look forward to every bit of it. Well, I've read it 3 times. If that tells you anything. When I was desperate for something to read, I just revisit it.
I think Aaron and
For me, that's high praise.
I think Aaron and I have mentioned Mistborn before, but if you get a chance to read Mistborn, there's really good. I started reading them
because of you. I've read the first.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
What did you think of the first one?
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Brandon Sanderson. So he did a great job.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yep. So you have read.
So that first Mistborn trilogy ends in I think really great storytelling reveal. The way it starts, how it presents the world to begin, things change in the middle, and then it twists everything at the end. I think it's just perfect storytelling. Really perfect storytelling.
Perfect 3-act structure, like the epitome of a perfectly done 3-act.
Well, I'll get back to it. I kind of got distracted. I haven't been.
Yeah, at least finish the first trilogy, because man, it's really good. The ones there's a couple other Mistborn books that are like Wild West, Victorian England type stuff, and those are fun.
I still got to finish those next 2.
Yeah, so do I. I started. What's it called? I read Alloy of Law. I started the one after that, and I don't know. I got bored or something, but
you should listen. Dresden
to
Files is kind of a modern fantasy, but that's Jim Butcher too. The Dresden Files is what got me started. Really enjoy it. A little cheesy, but I love it.
I saw the show. My parents
Oh, the
TV
show
show.
was it was an abomination. I
So
just
you read
can't-
the books. You read the books. That's why
Yeah,
you read the books first.
yeah.
So it proves my point every single time. So I saw the show. I'm like, oh, this is fun. I might read these books
It
because
was
this is
fun.
a fun show.
And I watched.
And you read the books first, and you watch the show, and you can't stand it. It's
No.
how it is every single time.
Well,
If you
part of
read
that,
the books
yeah,
first,
to
you're gonna
distance
hate.
yourself.
You're gonna hate them. Yep.
well,
You
you
read the books
develop a
first.
voice and a
Mhm.
personality in your head that TV or any other genre cannot compete with. Any kind of media can't compete with, and that's it. Resident Files.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and they by
the
necessity
series,
you have to cut out so much and dumb down story almost without exception.
it was just
one of-
they didn't put any money in it.
Yeah, one of the biggest arguments with my wife is that I have loved The Count of Monte Cristo, the book, for quite a while.
That's a deep book. I love that book.
It's an amazing book.
It's like, have
And
you read
my
it?
wife said when we were dating, basically, she's like, "Oh yeah, that movie's great." And I'm like, "If you think the movie's good, you ought to read the book." And she's like, "This book is boring." I'm like,
I'll love you tomorrow, but tonight we're done.
I'm like,
There's one example that I've ever found where the movie was better than the book, and that was
What's
Neil Gaiman's Stardust.
I love
Have you
Stardust.
seen the movie?
I watch that movie on a regular basis.
It's one of my top 5 favorite movies. I love the movie.
Me too.
The book, I
But
read it.
Did you watch the movie first?
Yes, but the movie, no, the book is objectively worse. Like, it's objectively worse. The book itself is fine, but it ends in like the least satisfying way. Like it's so boring.
ending.
Like the villain basically just gives up and leaves, and it's so lame. And so the movie just made it so much more like satisfying that way. And I don't know if there was some reason behind that. Maybe there's some deep reason where it's like, oh, shows that I don't know. Like maybe there was some justification for that. But that was the one time when I was just like, this book is just, it didn't land as well as the...
No, I never read the book, but I thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I love
Watched
the movie.
it. I own
Princess
it, and
Bride,
I watch it,
just as good as the book.
Usually right after I watch Lord
just
of the
in
Rings.
different ways.
So.
Oh, speaking of, have you checked out that Lord of the Rings TV series yet?
No, I've been saving it.
Yeah, me too.
I've been watching
Everybody else,
Blacklist.
before it even came out, were saying, "Oh, this is gonna be the worst thing ever." And I'm like, let's give it a chance.
I heard a lot of that attitude, but then I've seen
it's gonna make some people
that I know
mad
that actually watched it really liked it. So
yeah, so I'm gonna definitely go
ignore
with an
critics.
open mind. It sounds fun to me.
Yeah. Which, by the way, all 3 times they've tried to do Wheel of Time in a series, it has been awful. Terrible. Although the last time, I thought they actually made a real effort, but there is like a marked point where either they gave up or they cut money, and they could no longer afford to take it serious or something. I was disappointed because of all the political nonsense political and social nonsense they tried to incorporate into books that I love. And it's just irritating to me. I mean, you see that more often nowadays, and I don't understand it when they talk about how much money they put in these movies. Then they allow some director to turn it into his own personal, soapbox for whatever goofiness he wants to put out there and force down our throats. Sorry, I was on my soapbox.
Well, do we want to try some of the Kingdom stuff before we go, or do we want to try some of the backstory stuff before?
I'll do either one.